When you read the book, it's a very cliched thing to say, but it kind of paints pictures. There are such vivid images in that it could sort of be a movie script in a way, because it
which I also
so
find difficult when people say, "Oh, it's an impossible book to film," and you go, "No,
but
not really."
It just throws out images all the time.
Yeah. I think structurally it's tricky and tricksy, but the book is very visual. Yeah, highly visual.
Yeah. So is that a good thing in terms of making it into a movie, or does it just?
Well, I mean, some of the images will work and some won't, and obviously the difference between the forms are massive. And like, I was thinking the other day, and like a book is basically the author is like got a torch and going through a dark room and illuminating stuff, and you're gluing those images together in your head to make a picture. But then the author can change that picture around, and you don't feel shortchanged. But in a film, you just see the whole fucking room the whole time. And you get very cross very quickly if it doesn't add up. And I think that's the power of the book and the weakness of film. But then film has other things that are strong, being time-based and being able to use music and be able to create mood, which books can't do as well in some respects.
Yeah, because even in terms of some of the casting, there are things that come to your mind, and you're thinking, is that just because I'm imposing 70s things on it? Like Luke Evans, you kind of think of Sean Connery and Zardoz, the way he looks sometimes.
I always think about that.
Or Apocalypse Now when he's coming out of the swimming pool. And I mean, was there lots of 70s references that were important, or is that kind of subconsciously just?
Well, I think I kind of try not to be a postmodern filmmaker, but inevitably things are in there. I couldn't duck the Apocalypse Now reference. That would be churlish. That's absolutely obvious. But but what we said to Luke was more Oliver Reed.
Oh right.
And so and it was something like I'll never forget what's his name, the Michael Winner movie, which is a particular favourite of mine. I don't know if you know this film. It's like we've got one of the greatest beginnings of a British film ever, where he walks through Soho with a silver axe over his shoulder, and he goes and sees his boss, who's Orson Welles, and he chops the desk in half and throws the axe at him and goes, "I quit." It's a great film. So it was that kind of behaviour where you could be dangerous and drunk, but also smart, and a cad, but also charming.
Lang was satisfied with life in the high-rise. He felt able to relax, more in charge of himself.
Did the fact that you're working with a bigger budget and a kind of name cast bring you attention that you hadn't had in the past, or pressures that you hadn't had?
I think it definitely brought attention, which was good. I mean, that's why you have people who are stars, because you want that. You caught that. It's weird to come into contact with it. There was a family of people who were massive Hiddleston fans, like a mum and her daughters, that would travel to Belfast, to Bangor, to get to be there and get signatures, and they were there for a long time. And that's proper fandom, full fandom, and I'd never really experienced it before, and it's really, it's really excellent in many ways, and they were totally, up until the point when they said, "Oh, can you sign this book?" And I'm like, "Oh God, I can't sign High Rise. I didn't write it. It's slightly awkward, but okay, I will." All right, fine. So that side of it's good. I mean, I think that we went into it. There's a reality to production that to get something off the ground this big, that you'd need names like marquee names. But we embraced that, but also, without it sounding like bullshit, that Hiddleston was our choice for Lang all along, and it was brilliant that he's also really famous. That's great, but he's also really brilliant. So those two things it was happy days with that.
One thing was certain: Lang would surrender to a logic more powerful than reason.
I just wanted to ask you if there's anything that you felt that you wanted it in the film that you couldn't put in, maybe censors or...
There's a very specific thing I wanted to put in that film was stopped by production. You may have noticed it. When the dog drowns, it's covered, when it's on the side of the pool, it's covered by a blanket, because production would not pay for its back legs. And it was a fucking nightmare, and it was going to cost $2,000 for those legs, and they would not pay for them. And every time I see the film, I go, oh my God. And it meant that we couldn't do the shot of the dog floating in the pool that's in the book, you know, any of that stuff, because they were just too tight.
For $2 grand.
$2 grand for the legs of a dog. I mean, when you say it out loud, it sounds expensive, doesn't it? But, I mean, we could have.
It depends on the dog, I suppose.
Well, it's an Afghan, isn't it? So I guess it's a luxury brand. But I mean, yeah. So that was a depressing moment for me. A lot of the conversations went into that, and when we compromised, finally went, "Oh, just put a fucking blanket over it. Fine, it'll be fine." Yeah, I died a little inside when that happened.
How difficult was it to find the actual high-rises? Because there's so much of this brutalist architecture is getting blown up, as we've seen in Glasgow.
Yeah, it's really hard, you know. And we looked up and down the country, and one of the really great places we found was Birmingham Library, and they literally wouldn't let us in, and then they knocked it down. So I think the problem that the buildings have got is that a lot of them have got issues with asbestos. So if they're not in use and they've been fucked, basically, they're dangerous and you can't go in them. A lot of them got clad in the 80s with marble, so they're all ruined. Thanks, 80s. And then, so we went up and down, and then all the really good stuff, like Barbican, is a working place. All the universities that are brutalist are all working, so you can't really take them from being pristine to being ruined like we do in the film, because everyone gets cross, and you know, you only get tiny bits of time to shoot them. So what happened is we ended up in Bangor in Northern Ireland in a sports centre that was built in '73, and we built a lot of the sets inside that. And it was just a weird thing with the sports centre, because it was quite poor there. They hadn't ever had any money to update it, so it never got wrecked. It was exactly the same as it was. It was also next to a police station, so it never got vandalised. And they'd built a new, massive, really swanky sports thing down the road. So this thing was just sitting there, and we walked around and went, oh my God, it's amazing. And what was nice about it for me was that it had the proportions that were unarguably from the 70s. It wasn't like an art director's dream of the 70s. It was it. It was the thing, you know. So that kind of, and the materials it was made of, everything was absolutely right. So a lot of the stuff in the film, the swimming pools, squash courts, gyms, corridors and stuff are all in the leisure centre, and then the sets are all built, the apartments are all built in the five-a-side football area inside there. So it was all our own little micro studio. And then, you know, I don't want to shatter the dream, but the building's not real outside. It was, no, it's not real, sadly. And but yeah. There have already been films of the books in a way, and so Ballard's stuff is everywhere. And I certainly found that when I reread High Rise, and I thought, oh, shit, I've been reading this stuff for years. You know, this is in, you know, that was the thing. When we were starting the project, and people were saying on Twitter, oh, High Rise, it sounds like The Raid, or it sounds like Dread. You know, oh, it's Dread, or it's Snowpiercer. And, you know, I go, fucking hell, it's, yeah, all right, but it is, the Dread and Snowpiercer and The Raid all have a common lineage, which is back to High Rise, you know, from 2000 AD in the 70s is influenced, I think, by Ballard, you know, and you can't escape it. So I think it's kind of, it's there, and that's kind of what stopped other things being made. There is, that's Die Hard, you know. It's not that dissimilar in many ways, or it's Towering Inferno. You know, they are the genre of big buildings in trouble. You know, it's quite a, you know, it's quite a well-trodden path. Yeah.